wish
Ryan
you love me more than anyone in the entire world.
As Mariah Carey once said, why you so obsessed with the Beyond the Film podcast? I'm your host, Tyler.
And I'm Ryan, and I'm obsessively looking at Tyler, thinking about every movement he makes.
I hope we don't get copyrighted by Mariah Carey or Eminem, who that song apparently was about. So,
You're so funny.
I like to think that I'm the funniest person I know. Anyways, Ryan, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Obsession, Tyler.
Yes, we are, Ryan.
I didn't forget the name of the movie.
Definitely not. We definitely don't have footage on the cutting room floor of you forgetting the name of the movie.
There is actually a movie called Obsessed, though, right? Though it's the
yeah, with Beyonce.
Yeah, Beyonce. Yes. That's what I was thinking.
Yes,
we didn't just watch that.
No, but I think it won at least 10 Oscars.
No wonder I was lost throughout the whole movie.
Well, Obsession is I think the directorial debut.
Not quite. Apparently, he did a short film that won a ton of awards called The Chair.
And those awards are...
I don't know. I was just watching a YouTube video while I waited for you. But if you give me 2 seconds, I'll bring them up. The Chair won...
I mean, like, is he winning Oscars or Emmys or...
I'm pretty sure Nobel Peace Prizes.
The Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. You know, has a movie ever won the Nobel Peace Prize?
Won the Special Jury Prize for Best Narrative Short at the Oak Cliff Film Festival and competed at the Cannes Film Festival.
No movie has ever won the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, I think Obsession might be the first one. We are so wholly unprepared for this episode.
Well, I keep wanting to say Clive Barker, and I know that's not ready to Cleve.
Yeah. So his last name is Barker. I know that for a fact because I'm thinking, is this guy related to Clive Barker at all? Which I think would have been really cool, but he apparently, Ryan cannot remember.
It's Curry Barker.
Curry Barker. Okay, correct.
The man, the myth, the legend. Somebody that I've always watched on TikTok and the YouTubes, and I've never known his name.
Hey, man, you ready to go to the beach?
Oh, you're coming?
Whoa, man, what do you mean?
Are you coming?
Not currently.
So you don't want to come?
Whoa, chill out, man. Why do you want me to come?
In fact, I didn't even know he was making the movie until I cut you off in traffic to pull my phone out and be like, dude, this movie was made by this dude.
Yeah, I very much almost T-boned you in the theater, or in the parking lot theater.
I bet. It was worth it, though, because it blew my mind.
It definitely wouldn't have been worth the car damage that I would have gotten, but, you know. All right, Ryan, so this movie is about a man who is perpetually stuck in the friend zone with a girl, and instead of talking about his feelings, or very similar to the drama, just saying what needs to be said, he decides that he's gonna take this monkey's paw-esque willow branch that grants him one wish, and wishes that this girl becomes obsessed with him, and as you can imagine with a monkey's paw narrative, to disastrous consequences. Ryan, what did you think of Obsession?
So, I actually want to do this a little different, Tyler, because I gave my opinions first last time, and you did a big fake out on me. I actually want to know what you thought about this movie beforehand.
Okay, well, fair enough. I gave that whole intro for nothing, apparently. So I actually really loved this movie. I think 2026 is shooting nothing but 9s and 10s for horror movies this year. Like this movie, obviously is very much reliant on that monkey's paw, be careful what you wish for type narrative. But I think it actually puts a really interesting spin on it by not only being an allegory for sexual assault from the perspective of women, but also is critical of codependent parasitic relationships. And the movie is just anchored by what I think is an absolute star-making horror performance from, why did I not write down her name? Hold on. I think it's worth saying her name, but she is truly sensational in this movie. To the point where I think Indy Navarrete, I'm probably even butchering that name, which I'm very sorry. She delivers an all-time horror performance here. I'm talking like Toni Collette in Hereditary, freaking Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. Like this is truly what I think will go down as an all-time horror performance. And she is definitely also helped out by Barker's direction here. I think he makes a lot of really interesting choices when it comes to lingering on shots of her. Excellent uses of shadow in this movie. And it ultimately culminates to a pretty awkward but thoroughly enjoyable and gnarly horror experience.
I would agree for the most part. I'll get into mine right after I jump into here. I was actually right before we jumped on while I was eating my Taco Bell. I was watching an interview with Curry Barker. And he gave some really interesting insight that made me look at the movie differently afterwards. Like you said, what he was explaining was his idea was to kind of go for like a possession style movie. He actually gives some really good examples of possession movies that he pulled inspiration from that have done similar things in the past. But what he wanted to change with this, that I think makes her performance so amazing, is he didn't want to do malice ever in her character. There was never any malice. There was never, I'm going to hurt you physically. You felt that. You felt like she would, but it was whiny. It was, I need you. You need to be here for me. It was, like you said, it shows codependency to a level of something that we as men don't usually see. You're making faces. Dude, like you're...
I mean, if I mention it, it's spoiler territory, but things happen in this movie that are very clearly violent on her.
There's a difference between violent and malice. And when I use the word malice, I mean, like, think any other possession movie where somebody is, like, possessed by a ghost or a devil or something like that. Like, it's usually, like, more of, like, physical pain and physical, like, she's not sitting there cutting him or like hurting him in any physical way. And when she has these freakouts, it's like she's whiny, she's crying, no, I don't want him to leave. And he said that he was embarrassing himself on the studio floor, like, no, you're not doing it right. And he'd be like, you need to stay, kind of thing, like you need to give that kind of performance. And I think that really changes her performance in general. I agree with you that she gives an outstanding performance as this character. Do I think that this film is a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes? I would not agree with that. I do feel like there are some parts of the movie that are a little slow, and I feel like it ties itself up into a movie that takes a little too long. But I will say that now that I know that it's by Curry Barker, putting a face in between it and saying that it is his like first actual real full-fledged horror movie, I can forgive a couple things. I actually was talking to my wife on the phone on the way home, and like, man, some of those parts of the movies kind of affected me. You know me with like the Terrifier movies. There's some things in horror movies that just stick with me. And I think that this movie goes into almost elevated horror territory of it's not supposed to be scary, but the things that happen stick with you, and that scares you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very much not like a traditional, like, something pops out at you and scares you. I think the scares come from, like, the uneasiness that the movie puts you in constantly. Like once again, going back to what I said about the shadows. Like, there's a scene in the movie where she's watching him as he sleeps, and you don't even... I didn't even notice that what ends up being her on the right side of the room was her until she talks and then moves in a very awkward way, which I think adds to the performance. Like, she is almost doing this like uncanny movement with her body in a lot of this that makes her feel like less human, and very clearly, like, as you mentioned before, that this isn't just herself in this movie. She is possessed by some other entity, and the movie alludes to that, right? The movie alludes to this idea that this is not her, and that her consciousness and her soul or whatever is trapped somewhere else. And there's moments where she can like become lucid with her original consciousness, and it freaks the hell out of him. Like, and that's where I think the movie becomes really, really interesting thematically, because it has a lot to say about bodily autonomy being taken away from women. And I think we'll get into whether or not Bear, the main character, is a villain in this movie or not. I absolutely think he is, because I think he's the very stereotypical incel nice guy trope who, when push comes to shove, is not in love with the person for who they are, but is in love with the idea of a person and will go to great lengths to maintain that idea to the I can't think of the word, to the like detriment of the woman themselves. Like you could see so much authentic and real things in this movie. Like there very much is not, as you mentioned, like supernatural boo go bumps in the night here. You could imagine, outside of the probably the more intense moments, that this movie has happened before to someone somewhere, and I think that's what makes it even more horrifying.
I agree, and that's I mean, I think we've already hit territories, spoiler territory, so we can just go ahead and jump full spoiler from here on. But I think that, like you said, this is a great example of a movie that takes a situation that we as men on a normal day would not have any fear of. Like there's never a position really where a man is typically in this situation, but it puts you in the shoes pretty much of a woman that this is a regular basis kind of day for them. And I mean, going back to like, is Bear a villain? You have that typical scene, not typical. You have that scene where he's sitting on the room with her, and he's talking to the real Nikki, and he's like, what's the problem? You don't want to be with me, and that's all he sees.
Yes.
He's like, why are you doing this to me? You know what I mean?
Like if he truly was in love with her, he would have did whatever he possibly could to stop this situation. But the fact that he keeps going with it and clinging on to hope that he could stay with this crush that he's had, despite her very clearly viewing him as like a brother-like figure, like he is in the friend zone. And if that wasn't made abundantly clear before, that Hansel and Gretel speech that she gave at the party, like, just made that abundantly clear how she views him. In, even though, like, you know, if that's her consciousness talking or the other consciousness taunting him, either way, I think it's effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, like truly, the movie gives you a lot to think about and chew on. Like, it very easily could have been a he makes the wish, crazy stuff starts to happen, the very typical let's go on an investigation, you know, of those movies to figure out how we could stop it, and then a third act involved with stopping it. It very easily could have delved into that movie, but the movie is much more interested in being a social mirror and reflecting society's problems back on us, that the movie itself just is elevated as an experience beyond typical horror fare that we tend to get. And frankly, I kind of have a problem saying that, even because I think horror has done such a good job over the past 5 to 10 years of being really smart and giving more to us rather than just, you know, slasher slop or possession or demonic horror slop that we've gotten, you know, maybe so much as 20 years ago at this point. Horror has gotten a lot smarter in the last decade or two, and I'm here for it, because if we continue to get movies like this, I can't wait to see what the future holds. And I mean, just continue to give these kind of unknown filmmakers a chance, right? Horror's the perfect opportunity to do that. You could make a movie like this for $15 million, like dirt cheap. Like it's a tax write-off for some of these studios. Like, say what you will about Jason Blum, you know, whether he's made good or bad crap, like it's the definition of a mixed bag. But at the very least, he is willing to give people chances.
Absolutely.
They may not always work, but like he will take the highs and take the lows and ride the highs, man.
No, I agree. The lows are low for Blumhouse. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But those highs are high, and I still hold out faith every time I see that opening. He's always given the little guy a voice and a chance to kind of create what they want to create, and I have a lot of respect for that kind of studio. The one thing about the ending that really just irks me, and I need to say it out loud, is it was so simple to fix, and it was like the main character just wouldn't pay attention to what everybody was telling him. Literally, all he had... I know he messed up with his friend, where his friend wasted his wish, but like anybody on the street, nobody knows about these things. Get anybody, just say, hey, do me a favor, break this and say, I wish that this dude named Bear didn't make his wish before. Everybody would have gone back to normal. Sarah would be alive. She wouldn't be crazy like that. Even if she would have died and killed herself like she was trying to do, like all of that would have went back to normal. And it is so aggravating that was never even thought of as like a simple fix. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'll counter that. The audience member is always smarter than the horror movie character. It's just how it is. We may think that, like, hey, there's a very clear solution to this, that if you were smarter and not a obsessed incel freak, maybe you would have thought that there's different solutions here. I mean, he very clearly had the idea of trying to get someone else to make the wish. He just happened to choose the only other person in his life who he thought he could trust in his friend. His friend doesn't take him seriously and wishes for the $1 billion. And then
I agree with you, and like I understand, like it's why I always argue with Justin. All right, I'm the Justin in this situation. I get that, but I never have this feeling, and this is the one movie to really just irk me.
Okay.
I don't know. I get it though, and like you say, it's the incel in him, and you're probably right, because when I truly look at it, there have been a few situations of somebody that reminds me a lot of Bear in my life, and like has been people in my life that I've dealt with or talked to or maybe been friends with, and I actually am trying to put them in the shoes and see if they could figure out it, and I don't think they could. So
I mean, we all know a bear, and I think that's why the movie works.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And putting that in, you said incel, and immediately I was like, okay.
Well, and like, you don't even have to be Bear's level of bad to have gone through something very similar. I mean, we have all, I mean, I've been friend zoned. I'm sure you've been friend zoned, right?
Yeah, whether you're 10 or you're 30,
yeah.
Like somebody at some point has gone through this, especially if you're male.
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly human to want to hold on to a strong feeling that you have, and just when it's ripped out of you, it sucks. And that's where I think the movie gets really interesting, because for the first half of the movie, you feel somewhat sympathetic towards Bear in his situation, but as the movie progresses, and he just keeps digging his hole further and further until the eventual conclusion, which he gets a well-deserved comeuppance. Like you completely turn on him, and now we're talking about seeing him as the villain of this story.
Absolutely.
Like, there's very few horror movies that are willing to do that with their main character, willing to do that with their quote-unquote hero, right? So I mean, I do enjoy this ending. I think there's a point, like, I think Curry Barker was talking about this in an interview where he just originally wanted the ending to be her just shooting herself. But the ending he chose, I think, was so much more effective. Knowing that a girl who was innocent in this entire thing is suddenly thrust back into her body and having to deal with the fact that she awoke at a crime scene with 3 of her closest friends brutally murdered just sitting in the room. And how do you possibly go on to explain that? Like, like, I'm not saying I want a sequel to this movie, but like, would I love to see what happens in the next 10, 15 minutes after the credits begin to roll? Like, sure, man.
I wish we would have gotten some kind of after credit scene that just explained it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you said, it doesn't need a sequel. I do think it's an amazing allegory for sexual assault in being thrust back into the situation of how do you clean up your life afterwards. We don't need a whole movie explaining it, but a nice after credit scene explaining something happening would have been nice.
Or even just maybe not even just sexual assault, but also just like in the modern political climate where women have lost bodily autonomy with certain Supreme Court decisions that will remain nameless. This movie hits even harder. It is very critical on that idea. And I think one of the smartest points of this movie, like, I think the best scene of this movie is when he's calling the back of the box and he's going through and trying to figure out, like, interestingly enough, not how to reverse this, but how to make it more palatable for him.
Yes.
Right? He it's not like he doesn't want the obsession. He just wants it to fit within the normal social context so he's not uncomfortable, which I think is talking about something in and of itself. But I think the most effective part of the movie is when the voice on the other end, which I didn't know if you know, is Curry Barker. Curry Barker is the voice on the other end of the phone.
Okay.
He has that brief moment where he puts the line over to her where she's very clearly trapped, and like that was just the most like horrifying thing ever. And just like how he frames that scene where it's constantly going back and forth, and you always think that something is going to pop out of that window, whether it be her. There's several scenes like that in cars or around windows, and then during the eventual death of one of the friends, and it finally happens, it feels earned, right? Like
it's shocking.
This movie,
it shocks you.
Yeah, and supposedly when this movie premiered at a festival, like it was an NC-17 movie, and Curry Barker had to cut down that particular death scene a little bit to get the R rating. So, yeah, I mean, like, I'm going to be thinking about this movie for a while. Once again, I think that this movie is riding high on already a fairly strong year for horror. I mean, just last week we talked about Hokum, which was another great, strong horror movie for this year. And you know, I mean, we'll have the 10 polls, right? I'm sure some movies this summer will be duds, but looking back when me, you, and Justin eventually record that future podcast, I have a hard time, unless it just continues to be an all-star year, not seeing this movie on my top 10 somewhere.
No, I agree. I fully agree that it's going to be a really strong year for horror. I have a lot of faith in Passenger. We have Backrooms coming up, which is shaping up to look really good, which I don't know if you are aware of this, but Backrooms is actually directed by one of the original creators of the actual creepypasta story.
It said that in the trailer today. Yeah. I initially wasn't very excited for Backrooms, but after seeing that trailer, I'm a little bit more interested than I was. It's same thing with Passenger, even though that Passenger teaser was way stronger.
I'd like to maybe try to do a double feature if the times work out.
Yeah, I think I could probably make that work. I don't think Lizzie would care. Yeah, man, I mean, codependency, it's a hell of a thing, man.
Agreed. But anyways, before we get off topic, because we're already out of time, when should people see Obsession, Tyler?
I think right now. I think it was great seeing it with an audience. Like, I looked around and, like, obviously it was a lot busier when we left that, but I think our showing of Obsession was the busiest movie at that, like, 3-4 o'clock hour. And I think that's great. I think that's a movie that should be seen with audiences. I felt particularly great because when I started laughing at one of the awkward situations, other people joined in. So I felt vindicated in my knowledge of humor. Yeah, I think this is a theater experience, especially if you're a horror fan. Even if you're not a horror fan, like, I don't think there's a ton of, like, you know, like, scary zombies or like possession or even jump scares. Like, there's maybe like 1 or 2 jump scares, if that. I think even if you're not a big horror fan, I think there's something in here you could vibe with.
Agreed. It's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. But there's definitely something to chew on this for everyone. I will be 100% honest, and I went into this podcast going to say like wait for streaming. But now knowing who the director is and knowing that it's his first movie and actually liking his TikToks a lot, I strongly want him to I want to see what he does. I want to see him succeed. Let's I say see it in theaters, support new artists, support good horror, and maybe his next one will surprise me a little bit more. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think this movie wasn't my perfect horror movie. I'm still loving Hokum. But it'll definitely probably make the list.
Yeah, I mean, I think you very much feel how I felt about oh god. What's the name of the Markiplier movie?
Iron Lung.
Yeah. Where like, you know, I may not have been Iron Lung's biggest fan, but I definitely respect the vision of someone who has an idea, does everything he can with whatever budget he has to make it work and just see it work. I think that stuff deserves to be supported over the studio schlock that's constantly shoved into our faces every year. So.
Agreed. And I'll be honest, I'm a sucker for anybody in the business that is humbling and humble to what he can do. And like in the interview I saw, he's like, well, I got like the deep inhale cry from Midsummer, and I got the whole idea from everything because I was watching an episode of The Simpsons. It wasn't like I did this, I'm amazing. Everything was humble that he like expressed where he got everything from.
Did he say that about The Simpsons?
Yes.
He was inspired by the Monkey Paws episode of The Simpsons. I love that episode.
He was waiting to watch. He was on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and while he was waiting for it to air, The Simpsons was on, and he watched the Monkey Paw episode of The Simpsons, and he said, "That's a great idea for a movie. I need to figure out how to make that story mine."
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That just makes me love this movie even more, man. Yeah. This movie was truly, truly awesome. And I'm glad it lived up to the hype, because I was aware of that this movie was being hyped up by critics and audiences before going in. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, what did you think of Obsession? Are you obsessed with it?
I'm obsessed with you still.
Oh. Why are you so obsessed with me? Boy,
I'll be obsessed with you if you like and subscribe.
I would be obsessed with you as well. I couldn't think of anything clever to say. You know what? If you like, subscribe, and share this with your closest friends and family, I will personally come to your house and read you a Hansel and Gretel poem with a slightly incestuous twist.
Does that work for me too? Because I'll like and subscribe right now.
No, because you already get that on a daily basis.
Okay. See you guys next week for The Mandalorian.
This is the way.
Hopefully that's good. It wasn't good enough to be another season.
I mean, you're not a Marvel fan, right?
I saw the first Iron Man, and then I gotta catch
yeah, that's right. Okay, so that was my problem with a lot of those. Like
you'll learn about this next week. We're gonna talk about this off screen. See you next week.
Oh, I thought we were talking about this off screen.